Welcome back. Today we're going to do a dry fly. It's a new addition to kind of the old yellow Robert Sheldrake, one of my favorite flies on earth. It's kind of a combo of three flies. It's the Found Link, the Robert Sheldrake, and the Hackle Stacker. So we're going to do a Hackle Stacker style, but I'm going to do the extended body style of the Robert Sheldrake, which is it's an old 1940s fly. The thing is phenomenal. It's one of the best flies ever designed in the world, if you ask me. But I'm going to just do a couple little changes to it, and then we're going to do the Found Link style with the wing underneath the Hackle Stacker, and just show you a couple fun things to do. It's just it's a fun little fly, and I'm going to show you. I'm not going to do the peacock, but I'll show you another little addition to a Hackle Stacker. It's kind of cool. And so anyway, this fly is going to be. I'm going to use a TMC 100. This is going to be a 14. I do a lot of these in 14s. I'm going to show you some smaller ones too, but just so you can see them well. This particular fly is such a great search fly, a 16 or a 14 either size. Man, you can fish it anywhere. It doesn't really matter. So it's pretty basic. So for the tail, I'm going to use a fiery Coq de Leon feather, just a fiery ginger. The body is going to be, you can use any short fine. This isn't really short fine hair. This is just some bleached deer hair. And then this tail that I said, I don't know if you'll be able to see it very well, maybe in here, but it's a really dark brown, kind of the fiery brown. And that we're going to two-tone with that. The wing is going to be, we're just going to use some EP fiber. Whatever you like, what color. I've been getting asked that a lot lately. It's just any of the synthetic wing, it's not that critical. On the hackle, I'm going to use just a kind of an old Cree, because I want to go over this Cree thing. Jeremy's been bugging me to do a Cree debunking Cree, because man, that's all I get asked. Cree. This fly that's in this thing right now is with a Cree, and this is a really clean neck, right? For me, Cree has to have a dominant bar of black. It cannot be just dark bar. Ginger's beautiful, but it's not. And if you look at these, you'll see that that's black right there, and then the red. And it's an old neck, but it's a very clean Cree feather. And the thing you'll see is when we wrap this, not that I want to kill sales on Cree, but you really don't see it as much as people act like they do. I would say the number one thing people tell me they like to do with Cree necks is set them on top of their desk and look at them. Because once you start wrapping, you don't get exactly what you think you're the one fly atoms. And then the last thing is going to be some superfine. I'm just going to dub some brown olive superfine so I get a nice contrast on my wing. And so going through this, we'll get her going here pretty quick. We're going to put it, I don't really care, on this particular fly, I don't really care that if it's an up eye or down eye fly. It's a little easier to tie off when you're using the down eyes with this, but it's pretty even, whatever you like. I forgot to say, I'm going to use some 12-aught Semperfly. I'm going to use this orange. It's orange, not copper, right? Mm-hmm. The orange color probably says orange right on it. The thing about these nano silks, and I'm a total junkie. Semperfly nano silk changed my life. I've told that 1,000 times. The thing with a lot of these nano silks or any of the GSPs is that they tend not to show up like some of the nylons do. When you wrap these things, man, they get really transparent. They don't show up with the really distinct barring. You can try hitting them if you've got a color that you really like. You can hit them with a Sharpie. Sometimes that helps just a little bit, but like on the Robert Sheldrake proper, it was always tied with nylon, right? Well, in the day it was tied with cotton, and it's yellow, and it really shows up. So when you're working with these silks, be aware that when you're trying to bar with them, it's going to kind of fade away on you. So I'm going to start this thread slightly. I didn't start there. I'm going to start at the halfway point. I'm going to work back, and I've waxed that thread just a little bit, and I'm going to start that. So I want to be just shy of the halfway point. Just if to err on this, maybe err a little bit more half and half, because by the time you tie everything off, you're gonna rush your thorax just a little bit, and so I want you to have sufficient thorax that you get a good clean build up for your hackle stacker. So now we're gonna take just a little bit, and this is a really cool. I love this color on the underbody, and that's why I'm using the orange. It just tones out. If you want to use olive on this, it makes a more distinct line. But again, with this nano silk, you don't get quite the bar that you think you're going to. So especially when you're using the 12-0. If you go to 18-0, it's invisible. You're just not even going to see it. So we're going to take just enough of this that we can get a nice body. And this is the trickiest part of this whole Drake style body, is because we always leave, and I do this on the found link, I've done that video, and I want these tips to stick back here, so just so when we tie them in, you see that it's the end of the hook, just a little bit past there. What those tips do is they stop that fly when it goes to hitting the water. Those tips suspend it, and it really makes a difference. But it's a little tricky getting these the right length. You see I put my finger up there just a little bit past the bend of the hook. You don't want it to be short like this. You want it to stick back just a little bit. And then look at your tie-in when you do that. So, and it's better if they're a little long. Don't make them short. If they're short, then they're not going to flare and do what they're due. And so just go right there. So, I was looking at my thumb, come in and transfer, make a nice clean cut. Now spin your thread clockwise and come in here, and so you're somewhere right close to that halfway point. Do one turn, now 2 turns, and then look everything over. Make sure you're where you want to be. Pull right straight down. And so I'm going to anchor that just so you can see. Now I want you to see where your tips are, and where, if it's not right, you can slide it a little bit. So now, and this is one of the changes I did and I did it on some of my found links before. It's kind of cool, and with this particular color and with the bleached body and this particular color top, you get this really cool two-tone effect. And so take a little more than you need. And I was trying to sit here and kind of count. I'm guessing I've got 10, maybe a dozen fibers. And don't worry about, this having exactly the amount of tails. To me, I tend to have more tail, especially on these fine fibers. And you can see where I did with that other one, wherever it went. When you look at this fly, and I'll just, you'll see it's got a bunch of tails in there, and they're pretty long. That's just fine with me. I don't care having 2 split back there is cute, but I would rather have the suspension, and I like the fact that they're flexing up. Air long on this one. And so look at this, and I tend to just try to eyeball it and make it twice as long as those hairs. That's just a good reference for me. I'd rather they're much too long than much too short. And so come in here and just set it in, and I'm gonna put those right on top of this. I've only got 2 turns on this right now. I'm gonna go right over where I was and just set it. And before you move on, look, make sure things are on the top, and make sure they're close to twice as long. I think I'm a little short actually right there. So there I'm going to leave them on top. And again, we're going to spin our thread and try to leave maybe 2 inches right around that off your bobbin, and make sure this is really secure right now. And so come back here. Ideally, you wouldn't have let go and started talking like I always do. And we're going to try to make sure that that's flat on the top. And now we're going to start your progression backwards and get 2 on there, and look and make sure that you're right on top. You can stop right now. You got 2 turns, and then don't reef on this. Do not. Somebody asked me what the hell reef meant. Does that mean hard? Yeah, it means don't reef on it. Don't pull. I got a comment the other day. What does that mean? It means don't pull hard on your thread. We're going to leave those up there, and I don't want any real tightness to this body. If you squeeze it hard, you're squeezing all the air out of that hollow hair, and you stop the air trap that's giving you the whole flotation from this deer hair. So I'm going to take this last one and I'm going to come in right close here, and this one I'm going to cinch down just a little bit tighter. My thread's flaring out a little bit right there, so I'm going to tighten. I want it really tight. So now I'm going to look, and I've got my flare. I'm going to get my tails spread out. Make sure that they're going to spread for you. If you go too tight right here and they won't flare, lighten up and just make sure that your tails, stand them up. Just make sure that they'll flare out a little bit because we want them all over. We don't want them in a tight spot. Okay, now done. Now we're just going to go in nice even wraps forward, nice figure 8, just trying to not trap a lot of that body. Look things over now. You can always go backwards. You're getting a nice little segmented body. You get a nice little two-tone on the top. Cute. Everything's beautiful. So now, where'd we go to? I know I missed one thing when I was talking about. We're going to do a hackle stacker. This is just some 4X mono is all this is. And so, oh, I'm ahead of myself, forgot my wing. Now I'm going to take this trigger point, clean this up a little bit. Just make sure you don't not rushing your eye with anything. I'm going to put this in, and I'm just going to take enough that I can tie it in, 1.5 inches. We're going to leave it long because we're going to shape our wing like we always do. And now just wax that thread just a little bit so this gets a nice tight. And this is where I like to be able to see this. I do this now so I can see where this wing set is, so I can check it out. I don't want it really tight to the body because I'm going to build my thorax with the dubbing. And I always like to have, right here where we tie in, I like to have a little bit more bulk to that so my wing has trouble folding back. I don't want it to fold back against the body. And I look it over, and I've got enough room to make that. I'm going to set my other materials here also. And now I've got a figure 8 in there, and I've got a little wax on that thread. I'm going to come in and just set that. And so we're going to let it flare out a little bit, just like that. Boom. Beautiful. And now, before we go too much further, I'm going to kind of shape these just a little bit right now. And I always shape, cut my wings to shape. And we're just kind of getting them a little bit, just so when we go in there and we put our hackle on and we pull forward, you're going to still trim it at the end just to make it look really nice. But I'm going to get rough shape now. So the less I have to go in there after the hackle's laid down, even though it's a hackle stacker style, it's harder to get in there and get a nice clean cut. So I'm just giving a little bit of I'm just roughed out right now. I don't have anything too specific. Just kind of starting that shape. I've preached about that in a bunch of videos about just shorten the wings on the back of the hook so that shorter fiber will be stiffer and it'll just help it not, everything's about not letting it fold onto itself. Now, where'd that piece of mono do? Originally these were done with thread. I think it's a lot easier to do hackle stackers with mono. The only thing you got to be careful with is it pulling out. When you wrap this in, if it pulls out, you're in trouble. It's just, you got to start over. And everybody does this different. I was talking to, Wayne Llewellyn, one of the greatest dyers in the world, and he uses thread, but the guy's a freak. He can do anything. He's phenomenal. I tend to reef on it a little bit, and I just find it really easy to put this in and it ties off really easy for me. It gives me a little bit more control on my loop. So I'm going to set this, and this is just how I do mine. Everybody's going to have their own style and how far they like this loop to be in here. And so what I do, you're going to put your finger in and hold it to wrap your thread. For me, on my scissors, it says, and you just mark your own. Do one and see what you like the length of. I go like that, and that loop is from that rivet up, and that's how long it is, that's going to work for me just fine, right? It doesn't matter if it's a ½ inch or whatever height it is. If it's a one way or the other, it's not going to kill you. So I'm just going to wax that thread just a little bit, and I'm going to set this right now, and I'm going to set it pretty tight. I'm going to come back, and this is the thing, like I said, this is where if you screw up right now and you don't set this really well, when you go to tie this, and I cut it back to where the head would start. And so I'm going to have that there so I can get around it. That's actually a little short for me because I think I was talking too much. It's about a 1/2 inch. It's just what's easy for me to get my fingers in. I'm going to fight with this one just a little bit. Okay, now this Cree Hackle. And so I want you to see something. Not that I'm not anti-Cree. Man, I'm going to get people saying, oh, what's wrong with Cree? I love Cree. It's the greatest thing in the world. It is. It's a beautiful thing on your vise, on your desk. And so just getting that. And I'm going to take this Cree, and I want you to look at this. This is like an old neck, right? And so it's so beautiful on this side, and everything is great and gorgeous. Turn it over, and there's no color at all. And that's one of the downsides of this. The beauty of using Cree is that if you're in a hackle stacker, is that you're not going to have a dark. This is the show side. I wish I had something a little bit. You can't really see it unless it's in here, right? So it's very beautiful in here. You see that, Jeremy?
Yep.
Very beautiful. It turned over, and there's no color whatsoever. So if you were to wrap this parachute style down, you wasted your time and money because you're going to see that, but the fish isn't. When we do this one, we're going to wrap the hackle around this, and you should be able to see all this beautiful Cree-ness in this hackle. So I'm going to trim this out, and just as a point of reference on the hackle, when I started with the Heritage Hackle thing, which is the kind of the old school hackle, one of the things that I got asked a lot was how thick the rachis was, and will it do a hackle stacker, and will it split? And you know, they all split every once in a while. I mean, whatever hackle you've got will do a little bit once in a while. But to me, on this fly, on the hackle stacker style, I don't find it really that big of a deal if my hackles do split. If I wrap it around the hook like this and a hackle split, it's going to unwrap. But the thing about when you do a hackle stacker style is when you wrap that around this, whatever, if you're using thread or if you're using a mono loop, and when you come back down it and then fold it over, I've fished a lot of hackle stackers that I see split, but they can't unravel. And so I still don't want it to happen, but if I have a compromised feather and it happened to, on this particular fly, I wouldn't want to look down and see all my hackles split, but it never seems to undo, right? So now I'm going to put this hackle, I'm going to kind of pull my hackles forward, or my wings forward a little bit, and I'm going to set this hackle, get away from there, right on top, right beside the loop. I'm just trying not to catch that. And I'm going to leave myself just a little bit of stem here to start my turns. I'm going to check over this wing a little bit, see that I'm not trapping too much of this wing. Now, this is where the found link comes in. Found link was never done. The found link is a hair wing up and wing down. It's a dun and it's a spinner. And I tell you, I've basically gone to that for all my mayflies. I do it for everything. And so it's just a really unique thing because you've got both your dun wing up and your sprinter wing down, and they like it. So now I'm just going to take a little bit of dubbing here, and we're going to build this abdomen, or this thorax next to the abdomen. And that's what I was saying before. I like to have a nice bump, so kind of clean this out. We're going to go right behind the wing, and always looking at the bottom of your fly. You don't care one iota about the top of your fly. Your fish cannot see the top of your fly. All right? So we're just looking this over, making sure everything's clean. Look at your underside. You've got a nice, and you always want your abdomen your thorax a third thicker than your abdomen. So just a little bit more. I'm not going to accelerate all the way forward just yet. And just kind of clean your wings up, get a nice build. So we've got there. Try not to trap too many of those like I just did. Beauty miss. So now we've got our wing pretty well. We're nice. We're a little bit longer than we should be. Everything's good. And now I'm going to give myself just enough room to tie off that hackle, right? And so look at the bottom. All right, that's fine. Now we're gonna take the loop in our finger, and it's pretty easy to get, you know, to get used to this. You're using your thumb and your middle finger, and we're gonna wrap up. But I want to show you something that I was, just in case. When you do this, you're gonna pull this forward. And I was showing a guy in the shop a couple days ago, and I was tying one of these, and he said he went too far up. And I said, take your marker. If you can't figure it out, take your marker. If you're just doing them and it's bugging you and you keep going too far, just take any color Sharpie and mark it so that you see where that red ends right at the eye is going to begin. Don't let your hackle go much past that. It's just what it is. And so it's a simple trick. You're going to do 3-4 of these and you'll never do that again in your life, but it'll give you a little bit of a stop point if you're having trouble. And so I'm going to come in here with this first turn, and I'm going to, the hardest thing on this is missing that back wing. I'm just wrapping nice even wraps. I wish this hackle would split. It's not going to, but I wish it would so you could see what I was talking about earlier. It's not going to split, but you can see now I'm coming up, and you can see that red, right? It's very easy to lean forward and see how far you're going to go. But you can see it from right here, I can see it's like glowing. So I come up to the top of the red and then just start right back down, missing your hackle. My hackle is actually helping me miss my wing. I said miss my hackle. It's helping me miss my wing because it's built up till I get right to here, right at the bottom, and okay, grab it. Now lean it back, all right? You don't have to panic now. And I'm not going to let it go completely, but if I let go, it doesn't even really want to. It's not really doing anything, right? This is going to get trapped in itself. And so don't panic if it's right here and you drop your hackle. It's not really going anywhere. And now I'm going to pull this forward and try to do Charlie Craven, I learned so much from that guy. He's such a clean tire. And he has this trick where he grabs all of his hackle right now, and I keep trying to implement it into my tying. I can never make it quite like Charlie does. It's like incredible. But you're going to grab, can you see that, Jeremy? Right here, I'm going to pull this hackle back. But what I'm trying to do is this one's pretty clean. I don't have much trapped. But what he does, he'll grab that, and he'll get all those fibers in his hand, come in, and he never has that. And every time I do it, I've got one left there. He holds them, but he gets all those fibers in his. It's such a cool trick. I don't know. Probably should have thought of that a long time ago. I never did. So now I'm back to right here. I'm back to where the thorax was. And now we've got all our hackle. It's really nice and clean. And like I said, this is the point about if that hackle splits, if it happened to, you can see that red dot. If that happened to split, I've still got it. It's wrapped around there, and now I'm pulling it down flat. It's going to have a hard time unfolding. You know, it's like it's not going to go anywhere. So we're going to just split this. Wet your fingers just a little bit, and get the hackle all going back so it's out of your way. Just catch, and this is where this mono's a little slipperier than thread would be. So I'm going to get in there. I'm going to get 2 or 3 good pulls, turns, and I'm just going to tighten down. You see, I just grabbed it, and I'm tightening down just a little bit so I can get something to, tie off on. And this is where, when I first started doing these, first time I did one on thread, I pulled on that thing and I pulled it out, right? That'll irritate you. So just take your time, make sure everything's nice and tight, and we're just come in here and cut off your mono. I think I missed one there. Get you. Come here. All right, I'm going to get him in a second. So now we're going to just come in, and I like this copper colored. I got a couple stragglers there we'll get in a second. I swore I was going to learn to use that whip finisher, and I'm not using it right now, and I should be. Beautiful. Got a few stragglers right there. We'll get those in a second. Come in here. I'm a little bit sideways, so. Okay, beautiful. So now we've got you got two things going with this hackle stacker, right? Usually this, but I want you to see something. I hope that you can. That hackle, and I did this is size 14, so that's a lot of hackle, right? I don't think when you look at that in super close up before I trim all this wing out and do everything, when you look at that, this is what we were talking about earlier. There's not a whole lot. I just want to come in here and make sure everything's clean. There's a little hackle here. And now this is what I was saying about trimming these out. It's a little, I don't like to come in and hit my hackles. So I try to get it pretty close before and then just shape it out. But that's pretty clean. I'm going to leave it where it is right now for now. But I want you to see something. I doubt when you look at that, and so your hackle stacker's nice and up and fluffy and all that. And that's supposed to be a wing silhouette, right? From the bottom side, we can get this cleaned up. Got a few stragglers here and there. You got your wing. You've got an extra effect here. You've got a spinner wing. Is that visible to you, Jeremy? Mm-hmm. You got your spinner wing, and you got your legs, and you've got that secondary thing about having another wing above it from the side. It's really cool looking. You got a nice two-tone body here. It's kind of cool. You can come in if any of these bug you, just, that are down here, a little trapped here and there, just cut them out. But the thing I want you to see is that when it's all done, what I was talking about, this whole Cree thing, you don't really see that anymore. What you see, it's kind of grizzly-ish, right? And so it's still pretty, I'll give you that, but everybody's worried about they want this Cree. Kind of disappears when you get in there and you start looking it all over. Get him going. And so, but it's still a really cool effect. Now you want to make sure, give it a hit of varnish, but I want to show you something else on these hackle stackers. I was showing a buddy of mine, Wayne, I was showing that I was doing with these. And it's just, if you like to do hackle stackers, try it, because I think you're going to find it's a really fun, cool effect. Won't make it fish any better at all. But if you look at this fly, this same fly, just this a more traditional drake, if you look at it, you can see how built up the thorax is on the top. Is that pretty visible right there, Jeremy? Take a peek. And so it's got that cool hump, right? Kind of like...
Push it away from you.
Away from me?
Yep, there you go.
All right, you can see on top, see it over here. What I do with those is I wrap peacock herl up the thread first and come back down, right? And then wrap your hackle through it. Here's one that's a little smaller. This is a 16. This is a Robert's yellow drake style, right? You can see it's got the yellow thread, but I put the wings on it. And it's the same thing when you look over the top. You can barely see it because it's a 16, so I use a lot less. But I put peacock herl up the loop. You tie in your hackle first, and then you put your peacock in, come back down, tie off your peacock herl, and then go forward and do the rest of your dubbing on your thing. But don't wait until finish that off, because otherwise you're gonna have your peacock herl. But it makes it's really cool looking. It's got that humpy back on it. I don't know if it means anything to the fish. It probably means less, but it's a fun little thing to do. So, any rate, you're looking at that. This is a 3. It's kind of combining 2 or 3 of them. It's a really fun technique. If you haven't done hackle stackers, I mean, they've been around forever. You don't have to put the wing underneath there if you don't want to, because it creates that whole, kind of the wings on the water and the legs on the water all at once. And try this body style, though. It's the found-length style of Robert's yellow drake. You'll be amazed at how well this fly floats. It's almost impossible to get it to sink. Hope you liked it. Hope it helps you out.